News 18 and Federal Bank Primetime Studio.
Good evening. Welcome to Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. We're coming to you live from the CNN News 18 and Federal Bank Primetime Studio. Delhi's former Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia was granted bail today by the Supreme Court. The court came down heavily on the investigating agency, the Enforcement Directorate, saying that the appellant has been deprived of his right to speedy trial and that having a time-bound trial and the right to life and liberty are sacrosanct. The BJP says that Sisodia has only been given bail and that by no means is this a clean chit or any acquittal of any form. The question is, have the cases against opposition leaders, Manish Sisodia being one of them, have they been politically weaponized by the BJP and as a consequence by the agencies that report into the central government? Or are the opposition parties finding convenient grounds to escape scrutiny from their own alleged corruption? But first, the story of the day so far, as the Delhi former Deputy Chief Minister was granted bail by no less than the highest court of the land.
झूठे केस में फंसाकर जेल में रखा गया। तो शिक्षा क्रांति के जनक की आज बेल हुई, आज सच्चाई की जीत हुई।
It is a landmark judgment by the Supreme Court.
The principle is, why was he kept behind bars for 17 months? Who's stopping you from investigating anyone? If there is a charge against anyone of corruption, please go ahead and investigate them.
हमें उम्मीद है कि सबको न्याय मिलेगा और खासकर आप पार्टी के जितने नेता जेल में हैं, अरविंद केजरीवाल, उन्हें भी न्याय मिलेगा।
I think that's not right. The law does not insist on jail, but till the arguments are over and the judgment is given, I think everybody has a right to get.
इसका अर्थ ये नहीं है कि सिसोदिया जी अपराध मुक्त हैं, वो अभी भी अभियुक्त हैं और उनकी जवाबदेही कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ में बनेगी।
It is a significant ruling by the Supreme Court of India and it has key aspects whose ramifications go well beyond this particular case. So let's run you through it. Number one, the Supreme Court has said that the appellant, in this case Mr. Sisodia, has been deprived of his right to a speedy trial. It also went on to say that the right to a speedy trial and the right to liberty are sacrosanct. Remember, a right to life and liberty are part of fundamental rights guaranteed by the Constitution of India. The court also perused the matter that's been produced before it by the Enforcement Directorate and said there were as many as 493 witnesses, thousands of pages of documents, all of which make the completion or even the beginning of the trial in the near future improbable. The court also said that prolonged incarceration without any trial violates Article 21, which is the right to life and liberty. It went on to say that it's high time that the trial court and the High Court recognize that bail is the rule and jail is the exception. Now remember, in all cases, in almost all sections of the Indian Penal Code, now the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, this is the dictum, that bail is the norm and jail is the exception, except in Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Today's judgment by the Supreme Court lays down that same principle for other cases in PMLA as well. It also says that Sisodia poses no flight risk. That's one of the conditions that has to be met for granting bail because of his deep roots in society. Also, the court has said that much of the evidence is documented already, which means that the chances of tampering with evidence, which is a second condition, tampering of evidence, influence of witnesses, these are two conditions that need to be met for granting bail, even in normal charges, more so in PMLA. And the court has concluded that tampering of evidence is also not possible because much of the evidence has already been filed in court. Let me now go across, open this up to our panelists. Mr. R.P. Singh, National Spokesperson of the BJP, joining us. Siddharth Sharma is Spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party. Satya Mole is an advocate, and Rashid Kidwai, Senior Journalist, joining us. R.P. Singh, the court has been pretty heavy in its criticism of the Enforcement Directorate, saying that the appellant has been deprived of his right to speedy trial. The right to speedy trial and right to liberty and life are sacrosanct rights. Please respond. Isn't this an absolute admonition of the investigating agency and the manner in which it has tried to build up a case against Mr. Sisodia? The court is basically saying, please grant him bail. You waited 17 months. What are you waiting for to start trial?
Well, all granted to Manish Sisodia, but the same court gave such observations just a few months back. It said that 338 crore money trail is there as part of the observation of the court, and they were satisfied with the money trail of the about the Mr. Sisodia, and they denied him the bail that time, and they told the ED to ensure that the trial starts within 6 months, but because of the Mr. Sisodia's planning that he keeps moving to one court to other court for getting bail and challenging the jail itself, and the ED was more busy with that than starting the trial. And also, I've been reading that this is that Satya ki jeet hai. We have been reading this since morning. Satya ki jeet hai. I mean, man has been given bail on ground of one personal bond, 2 sureties worth 30 lakh rupees. Monday, Thursday, he has to be present in the jail, in the police station every Monday and Thursday in the police station. So 30 lakh surety, Monday, Thursday in the police station. His passport has been impounded, or probably has been that he can't travel out of the country, and also that he can't keep his phone off. He has to keep his location on so that he can be tracked anywhere whenever the police want to track him.
Okay.
So to whom all such conditions are applied, please, you should know it better than me. Is it applied for a person who is not guilty, or person whom court thinks is being rightly accused of such a certain illegalities?
No, the matter of bail does not pronounce any kind of order on guilty or not guilty. That will be established through the course of a trial. But let me ask Siddharth Sharma of the Aam Aadmi Party. I'm going to list out what various courts of law, trial court, high court, Supreme Court have said about Mr. Sisodia's case, and so please respond in the context of what the Supreme Court has said today. In March 2023, the trial court denied Mr. Sisodia bail by saying that he's the prima facie, he's the architect of the criminal conspiracy behind the Liquorgate scam. In May of 2023, the Delhi High Court rejected his bail, saying that the charges against Mr. Sisodia are very serious in nature and that the policy was formed for undue advantage for certain individuals whose influence was there on the then Deputy Chief Minister of Delhi. In October of 2023, the Supreme Court denied him bail. The same court which has given him bail today in 2023 October denied Mr. Sisodia bail and said that money trail of 338 crore has been tentatively established. The BJP's contention, and any lawyer who you speak to, Mr. Sharma, will say Mr. Sisodia has just got bail on a technicality, which is that trial has not started. It doesn't by any stretch of the imagination mean that he's getting a clean sheet.
Absolutely, you are right. Mr. Manish Sisodia today is in the same position as Mr. BJP stalwart leader, Mr. Yediyurappa, the former Chief Minister of Karnataka is. He is also a POCSO accused, and he is also on bail. So since if BJP is saying that he will be pronounced guilty in the future, the same would apply to Manish Sisodia. If the BJP is saying that let the law take its own course, the same will happen to Manish Sisodia. So today is not the day, Zaka, to be very smug or confrontational. Today is a day for humility for us. First of all, right at the outset, let me tell you that we congratulate lakhs of students of Delhi. They were getting good education till now. Henceforth, they will only get great education. And today what the Supreme Court has essentially done is that it has given an unpopular opinion to the BJP ecosystem. do not wield power as a weapon. That's what what the Supreme Court has said. The Supreme Court has essentially today educated Modi Sarkar with a reality check. Use power as a tool to serve people, not to punish opponents. Learn from Aam Aadmi Party. Put kids into school, not people in jail. Build schools, don't build a conspiracy. I think, and coming to the part, one big education that I think when Manish ji was released today, he thanked Baba Sahab Ambedkar for that. He thanked my every. He literally said in Hindi कि मेरा रोम रोम बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर को धन्यवाद देता है. Please understand the import of it. What he was saying is that the BJP ecosystem feels that what Mr. Modi brings in is a law. Today, the court has said that Modi bringing a law is not important. There can be a law which is unconstitutional. So the
Mr. Sharma, just one second. I'm sorry to interrupt. This is pictures. We're getting live pictures on the right-hand side of your screen. Mr. Sisodia meeting Sunita Kejriwal, the wife of the Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. His son, I believe, is also there. Mr. Sanjay Singh, you can see him in the background. Saurav Bharadwaj is there. So this is just him meeting all the individuals associated with the Aam Aadmi Party and of course the family of the Chief Minister as well. Mr. Durgesh Pathak is there as well. But anyway, even as these pictures play out, Mr. Sharma, I want to ask you, what do you have to say to what various courts, including what the Supreme Court said, I said this a moment ago, that money trail of 338 crore has been tentatively established. In May of this year, as recently as May of this year, Delhi Rose Avenue Court said that frivolous submissions from Mr. Sisodia are a concerted delaying tactic. In May 2024, the same month, the Delhi High Court said that the case highlights grave misuse of power and breach of public interest. Mr. Sisodia was the excise minister when the excise policy of Delhi was changed and it favored a certain number of individuals. What has to be proven in a court of law is that for that change of policy were kickbacks given either to Mr. Sisodia or to your party.
Strangely, Zaka, all the arguments that you forwarded today, just now in your program, all these arguments were exactly the same arguments were forwarded by the ED lawyer in the court, and the court took cognizance of all of this and said that Mr. Modi's law, if it is wrong, it does not supersede the Constitution of India made by Mr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar. Baba Saheb Ambedkar's Constitution gets primacy over Mr. Modi's
No, Mr.
law.
Sharma, please refrain from the rhetorical part. I mean, answer the question. The merits of the case, the case I have outlined. No, you are not countering the merits of the case. Mr. Sisodia has been granted bail as a matter of the violation of one of his sacrosanct rights, which is right to life and liberty, and that a trial cannot take 17 months to start. That's the reason he's been given bail, not because the charges against him have been dropped.
No, absolutely not. The charges against Mr. Yediyurappa also stand for molestation of a woman, but Mr. Yediyurappa is not guilty. Exactly that way, Mr. Manish Sisodia can have all the cooked up charges against him and he will face a court of law. And all the arguments today that you put in your program right now, that there was delay in trial due to Manish Sisodia, there is enough indication. All these things strangely were put by the ED lawyer also, and the Supreme Court, after hearing it, said that Mr. Manish Sisodia is eligible for bail.
Okay, so let me ask Mr. Satya Mole as an advocate of the court of law. The court also came to the conclusion to give him bail because of a couple of reasons. One, that almost 500 witnesses have been examined, their statements have been recorded. Over 1,000 documents have already been produced and are part of the court records, part of these case records, and therefore the question of tampering with evidence does not arise. As far as influencing witnesses is concerned, again the court has observed in its order that much of these witness statements have already been recorded, many of them under 164 CRPC. The court has come to the conclusion to give him bail because prolonged incarceration without trial violates Article 21, which is right to life and liberty. The court has also said that it's high time, whether it is trial courts or high courts, recognize the dictum that bail is the rule and jail is the exception. It is basically underlining what has always been a traditional position in criminal jurisprudence. You do not have to criminally arrest someone unless there are exceptional circumstances.
Yes, of course. In this particular case, it has been in fact established that there are exceptional circumstances, and therefore only the High Court as well as Supreme Court, including the trial court, has denied bail to Manish Sisodia on various counts when the bail was sought on merits. Today, only after passage of 17 months, just because there has been a huge amount of time consumed by the prosecution agencies, there was one loophole that was identified by the lawyers that infringed the rights of life and liberty under Article 21. The Supreme Court obliged by granting him this particular bail. By no means this is a clean sheet. In fact, this is only a small loophole that was exploited successfully. And what we can say at this point of time is that only one small battle has been won, but the war is still on.
But Mr. Mole, if the ED had a watertight, almost open and shut case, what are they waiting for? It's been a year and a half. Why aren't they pressing the court to begin trial?
What happens is there are more than 400 of witnesses. In fact, not all the witnesses have been concluded. There are more than 8 lakhs of pages which are crucial to be examined. And having said this, once this is concluded, then only the trial can start. Apart from saying this, that half-cooked trial or a charge sheet cannot lead to a successful trial, which is also a mockery of justice. Therefore, what we can definitely say is that ED and CBI did their part by filing a charge sheet, and apart from that, they also filed 4 supplementary charge sheets. It can definitely mean that there is much more to what has been concluded.
Rashid, what is going to be the political fallout of this release of Mr. Sisodia? Basically, the court has said the ED has no reason, has not given any convincing reason for why the trial has not begun after 17 months. I want to know the political fallout because A, Mr. Sisodia was the excise minister. So if the contention of the ED and the case against Mr. Sisodia is that he as excise minister changed the excise policy of Delhi in order to favor certain private players, and for that change of excise policy, him and his party got kickbacks in return, then if Mr. Sisodia has been granted bail, A, what bearing will that have on Arvind Kejriwal, who is still incarcerated? 2, if Mr. Sisodia and Mr. Kejriwal are out on bail, and by no means is this taking away the Damocles sword of the cases against them, or is this by any means any kind of clean sheet to either of them, but if they are released, as Mr. Sisodia was released today, if at some point Mr. Kejriwal is released, before the elections in Delhi next year, which is January, February of next year, how may that politically affect the fortunes of both the BJP and the Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi?
Yeah, so Zaka, you have raised a very pertinent issue. On the political turf, the BJP will have to do a lot of explaining that why this a particular leader from Delhi was kept in jail for so long, and yet that trial could not begin. The process cannot be the punishment. It is not in favor of Mr. Sisodia, but it applies to everybody. It's a very flimsy excuse to say that, because the ED itself had gone and told court several times that they will have, they'll start this trial in 6 to 8 months' time. So 17 months have passed. 17 months is a very long time. And if as the Supreme Court has rightly observed, Mr. Sisodia has roots in society. He's an elected representative. So there is no point in keeping him in jail. He is merely an accused. He is not a convict, that person who should be kept in jail. On a political turf, if you see the reactions today, all opposition parties have got together and they are supporting. So it will have a political implication. In public mind, public is very, they can make a distinction between what is politically motivated and what is not. The ED's track record, unfortunately, is quite pathetic when it comes to, rate of conviction, because it's 4%, 2%, 1%. Other day, court observed that the 5,000 cases, the ED is only able to, convict only 50% of people, only 50%. So this is too, staggering a figure. So therefore, I think the BJP may pay a political price. What they're trying to you see, it's a legal battle, but they're trying to use it for their political gains, and it's not happening.
So let's ask RP Singh that. Isn't that the BJP's biggest fear, that if now Mr. Sisodia is out, and if he is allegedly the principal player, because he was after all the excise minister of Delhi, or at least in charge of the excise department of Delhi, and Arvind Kejriwal did not sign off on any files, he was of course the chief minister. If this becomes a basis for Mr. Kejriwal's lawyers to ask for his bail, if both of them are out before next year's assembly elections, how is the BJP going to politically counter it? Because bail or no bail, acquittal or no acquittal, they are going to go to the people and say, देखो, कोर्ट ने हमें छोड़ दी.
Well, हिंदी में कहावत है, काट की हांडी एक बार चढ़ती, दो बार चढ़ती, तीन बार नहीं चढ़ती. Right now, my friend from the Aam Aadmi Party was trying to talk about the schools. Let me share with you, 8th April this year itself, the Manmohan Sajeva, probably from right level, Justice Manmohan, Chief Justice, let me take his name right, Acting Chief Justice Manmohan, can I please never interrupt it, sir, मैंने interrupt नहीं किया आपको sir, please. Acting Chief Justice Manmohan, sir, please, sir, I apologize for that. Acting Chief Justice Manmohan said that there is serious shortage of classrooms, lack of books and writing material, broken desk, and the person was appointed by the court to go and inspect the schools. He said, there are more than 144 children in one classroom. It's a sad state of affair. And then court further said, you are not supposed to publish announcements of newspapers that schools are hunky-dory. So this is the state of the affair of the schools as per the court, not me saying so, sir. It is the Acting Chief Justice.
Okay, but RP Singh, please answer my question. Let's talk about the politics of the release of Mr. Sisodia, and possibly in the next few months before the next assembly election, the release of Mr. Kejriwal. Then what will you do politically?
So people have Delhi have already tasted the truth and seen what is the reality on the ground. That was what I was trying to tell you, that schools are in shambles, mohalla clinics are in trouble, the Delhi overall infrastructure is collapsing. You have done stories recently how just little rainfall, there's a drainage problem and deluge problem in Delhi. There is a water shortage when there is summers. Coming months we will talk about the pollution in city. So people of Delhi knows what is the truth. Whatever story they want to build up, the story is not going to help, because they know that there is a liquor scam. One bottle was served with another bottle. Liquor vents were open outside the schools and the gurdwaras and mandirs. So people of Delhi very well understand what is the real issue, and the crux of the complete scenario in city is that people are
that is a fair point. Siddharth Sharma, at the end of the day, I don't think whether Mr. Kejriwal is in jail or Mr. Sisodia is out is going to decide the Delhi elections. It's going to be decided on whether people of Delhi feel their quality of life has improved in the last 10 years. You've been in power from 2015. Point is, we have seen in old Rajendra Nagar, and Mr. RP Singh hails from Rajendra Nagar, just one bout of rain and water gets flooded into a basement and 3 kids die. And you control the MCD, you control the state government, MLA is yours, MLC is yours. But you're throwing your hands up in the air for every little thing that happens in Delhi, from traffic jam to cleaning up drains. You just blame the LG as though people of Delhi did not vote you to power. People of Delhi did not vote the LG to power. They voted the Aam Aadmi Party to power. So that is what is going to decide Delhi's elections, not whether Mr. Sisodia has got a bail or whether Mr. Kejriwal has got a bail.
Yeah, very nice, Zaka. Good that you guys have come to my pitch to play. You are speaking about education here. Then this is BJP's Gujarat model of education, a party which doesn't assign even 2% of its budget to education. It says that 25% of the Delhi budget is on education. A party like BJP, which cannot have a decent NEET exam, it is speaking about education. So people know that. You ask any person in Delhi, that was a sad part. There are certain accidents that happen, and Rajendra Nagar was an accident. We know across India there have been rains, and from Uttarakhand to Wayanad, the rains have played spoil sport with people's lives, and that it is an unfortunate part. And we are responsible we take moral responsibility, practical responsibility for all the things in Delhi. Hangs with BJP because it has all the powers as per itself.
No, if the practical responsibility is with the BJP, then the votes should also go to the BJP, no? People of Delhi have given you 60 or 62 MLAs. So how can practical responsibility be with the BJP? Number one. Number two, you are calling it an accident. I'm saying it's culpable homicide, because if the drains outside that Rao study circle were cleared and it was the job of the MCD to clear those drains, those kids would be alive today. It's not accident, it's negligence. It is death by negligence.
Exactly. I think, Zaka, what you are saying is that demonetization, because of demonetization, all the deaths that happened is also culpable homicide on the part of BJP.
मतलब क्या तर्क रख रहे हैं आप?
It is also because of BJP bringing in a law, and that is also culpable.
What sort of bizarre comparison is this?
Coming from Zaka.
No, what is this bizarre comparison? Whose responsibility was it to clean the stormwater drain?
The responsibility of cleaning the stormwater drain was with the executive falling under the BJP's LG.
How does the executive fall under the BJP's LG?
According to BJP,
the drain water, the stormwater drain cleaning is the responsibility of the MCD. Mr. Sharma, I am really sorry. It is a pathetic defense when you are saying that an engineer is responsible for cleaning the MCD. Engineer को थोड़ी ना वोट दिया है लोगों ने वहाँ पे. आरपी सिंह, क्या एग्जीक्यूटिव इंजीनियर, असिस्टेंट इंजीनियर, चीफ इंजीनियर को वोट दिया है राजेंद्र नगर के लोगों ने? किसको वोट दिया है?
This is the mayor of the city on 18th June going tom-tom in the city, saying that 92% of the city drains have been cleaned. She was thanking
Mr. Sharma, one second. Mr. Sharma, one second. Your leader has been released on bail, no doubt about it. Supreme Court has made some very harsh observations, and I put those questions to Mr. RP Singh. The BJP definitely needs to answer those questions that have been raised by the Supreme Court. My point is, I want to take this forward, because in 7 months or 8 months, Delhi is going to go to polls, and people of Delhi are going to rightfully ask the question, which is going to be the question that's going to underline their vote, their voting preference. How has their life improved in the last 10 years? Has it improved? Because if a majority feel it has improved, you will come back to power. If a majority feel it has not, that Delhi today is a ramshackle city. People are saying that Sheila Dikshit was better than this.
Zaka, can I answer it?
Yes.
10 seconds. I think the viewers of CNN are very intelligent enough. They can just go on Google and search. The per capita income of a Delhiite today is better than India's. All the states, especially BJP. It is
roads were better, metro was running better, public infrastructure was running better. Nobody died of drowning. Nobody died of drowning before 2015. No UPSC aspirant died because stormwater drains outside his IAS coaching center was not cleaned by the MCD. Nobody died because of drowning. क्या बात कर रहे हैं आप? Mr. Mule, but forget about the politics. Politics तो चलता रहेगा between AAP and BJP. I want to deal with the legal merits and demerits. Today's order very, very clearly says 3 things. Number 1, that prolonged incarceration without trial is a violation of Article 21, which is right to life and liberty. It also says that Mr. Sisodia is not a flight risk because of his deep roots in society. No question of tampering with evidence, because much of the evidence is already documented. And no question of influencing witnesses, because almost 500 witnesses, their statements have been recorded. So basically, the onus now is on the Enforcement Directorate, the investigating agency, to explain if they have 493 witnesses, thousands of pages of charge sheet, what are they waiting for to begin the trial?
Well, I think there is an amount of non-cooperation from the people who are responsible also. It has been an allegation that Mr. Kejriwal is not cooperating by disclosing the data, including not giving password related with his mobile phone. Having said this precedent is not setting an example. What question we need to ask here is also, we are a party. If somebody is saying that they are a party against corruption, then the chief minister, the deputy chief minister, and all these people are in jail. So having said this, now what we have to definitely look at is that the ED and CBI, they will proceed, and after recovery of further information in context to Mr. Kejriwal, because at one point of time, Supreme Court did say that where is the money trail?
Yeah.
And if the money trail is not with Mr. Manish Sisodia and Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, then where is the money trail? Then this particular point came that the money, the recipient of the money is Aam Aadmi Party.
Yeah.
Then the Supreme Court definitely asked, where is Aam Aadmi Party made as an accused? And therefore only Mr. Arvind Kejriwal was made and accused as a kingpin.
No, that's
So
a great point
now,
that Mr. Mule has made. So that will also politically have an impact, Rashid Kidwai, that ultimately the kickbacks, allegedly, if it came back not to the individual accounts of Mr. Sisodia or Mr. Kejriwal. It came back to the Aam Aadmi Party for it to fight elections in Punjab, Goa, etc. Now the question is, Rashid Kidwai, who is the head of the Aam Aadmi Party? It is Mr. Kejriwal. How can he wash away responsibility if this allegation is indeed true?
Yeah, Zaka, that is, these are in the realm of allegation. This is not being proved by court of law. The matter is sub judice. We cannot go by the, inspired leaks or the kind of comments that are being, made one observation by one court or another. I think the upshot is what today's Supreme Court has said about, the lower courts and various trial courts and high court, the kind of high-handedness that they display. And as a citizen, as a civilized society, we need to ponder over this, introspect, rather than do this BJP, Aam Aadmi Party, Congress, tutu mai mai. So this is a very serious matter, Zaka. It pertains to right to liberty, dignity, everything, and we should look beyond this. Why somebody was kept in jail for 17 months? 17 months again, I would say, the very, very long time. And a trial has not begun. And this is something we need to, not to say that on a technical ground, Mr. Sisodia has been given a bail. It can happen to anybody.
I absolutely agree with you. I think today's order by the Supreme Court is a wake-up call to lower courts and to high courts, which have been loath in a sense, or at least certainly reluctant to grant bail, or at least to follow the dictum that bail has to be the norm and jail is the exception. Whether or not today's order will change that in the manner in which trial courts and high courts approach matters of corruption, which the opposition is alleging is politically motivated, that is something we'll have to wait and see. That could be a happy fallout of today's order. But politically, like I said, ultimately, whether or not this has an impact on the elections of Delhi 2025, that is something that we'll be keenly following here on CNN News 18. Focus now to our second segment, which is the turmoil in Bangladesh amid the targeted attacks on Hindus. Hindu homes and temples across the nation have been attacked, including those of Ahmadiyya Muslims as well as other minorities. This comes even as Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus has taken over as the head of the interim government. He has said that he will protect the constitution and will perform his duties sincerely. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has congratulated the Nobel laureate Dr. Yunus and reiterated the need for safety for Hindus and other minorities to establish a degree and a semblance of normalcy, if you will, in Bangladesh. But there are concerns which are rife. Remember, there have been attacks on more than 24 districts across the country. It is not just Hindus. Buddhists have been targeted. Christians have been targeted. Even things that are associated remotely with India, like cultural centers formed by the government of India, have been attacked. The question is, will this new government be able to provide an all-encompassing umbrella of security, not just to the majority who live there, but also to minorities who may be vulnerable? Because it's not just the Indian government. Even Indian origin congressmen and women in the United States have voiced concerns. Let's try and get a US view on this crisis. I'm now joined by US Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy, who among other Indian congressmen have expressed their concerns about the ongoing situation in Bangladesh, particularly in reference to the treatment of its minorities, particularly Hindu minorities. Thank you very much, Mr. Krishnamurthy, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. First things first, I want your thoughts on what has been pretty momentous events in Bangladesh in the last week. The fact that here was a prime minister who's been ruling uninterrupted for the last 15 years. She's been ousted from power. Muhammad Yunus, who is a very well-known, well-renowned Nobel laureate, he's now been appointed as interim prime minister. We don't know what the next dispensation is going to look like, but the events of the last week, how would you characterize them?
Well, I think that we welcome Muhammad Yunus as the new prime minister. He actually spent a lot of time in Chicago, which is where I'm Zooming with you from right now. And we welcome his rule, but we have to make sure that in his rule that he looks out for all minorities, whether they are Hindus or others. And I'm sure that the US, Europe, Japan, and others will also aid him in his efforts to restore stability within Bangladesh.
You have tweeted about this just in the last couple of days or so about the need to protect minorities, particularly Hindu minorities. Could you elaborate on what your concerns are regarding what is it that you want to see more from the interim government in Bangladesh?
Well, we want to see Muhammad Yunus continue to do everything in his power to prevent the targeting of Hindus and others who've unfortunately suffered indiscriminate violence in the last 48, 72 hours. He has said the right things. Now we need him to back up his words with actions.
How much of this violence that we've seen do you believe is against a certain set of people because of their religion, because of their faith, or is it intrinsically linked to political factors?
Well, unfortunately, what we've seen is that there's been a deliberate targeting of Hindus, whether that has something to do with potential political allegiances, I don't know, but it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, no minority should be targeted, and certainly nobody should be ever targeted based on their religion. And unfortunately, there's been a history. This is not the first time that Hindus have been targeted in Bangladesh. And so we have to make sure that even as Muhammad Yunus ushers in a new day in terms of the governance of Bangladesh, he also makes it very clear that nobody, including Hindus, should be targeted, and that he takes steps to ensure that what he says actually becomes reality.
You did say that Hindus have been targeted in the past as well, even when Sheikh Hasina was ruling Bangladesh. Why do you think the attacks in the last week are different qualitatively from what happened in the past, and why does that concern you more than what we've seen in the past?
Well, I was concerned about what happened in the past as well. And I think that what we're seeing right now, unfortunately, is just a new chapter in an ongoing saga of kind of the targeting of Hindus. In the past, during Durga Puja, in the fall, Hindus were routinely targeted. Now, thanks to the authorities in the last couple of years, Hindus were less targeted, and me and other members of Congress asked the Bangladeshi government to do everything in their power to protect Hindus, and I think that had some effect. But now going forward, the current authorities have to do everything in their power to protect Hindus now. They know how to do this. They need to step in and do it.
I do want to ask you, the fear is that now that Sheikh Hasina is out of the picture and the Awami League, the ruling party for the last 15 years, is out of the picture, there is a growing fear, whether it's the Bangladesh Nationalist Party under Khaleda Zia or whether it's the Jamaat-e-Islami, that some of the more radical Islamist forces will sort of come to the fore much more, and that would consequently mean more attacks on minorities. How worried are you about that?
I'm very concerned. But at the same time, we have to allow the democratic process to unfold in Bangladesh. We have great respect and admiration for Muhammad Yunus, who, as you know, is a Nobel laureate and commands great moral authority within Bangladesh and worldwide. And so he needs to set up a process whereby, the democratic forces within Bangladesh are allowed to work their way. However, if Bangladesh is to receive support in its bid to restore economic stability within the country, and if it's to receive support from places like the United States, then it's going to need to make sure that minorities are protected. Hindus make up about 8 to 10% of the population, so it's a sizable minority, and they, like everyone else in Bangladesh, need to see law and order and stability.
I do want to ask you a word about Sheikh Hasina. Of course, she ruled the roost, as it were, for the last decade and a half. She was an extremely unpopular figure, but at the same time, she's now in India. She's a friend of India. How do you see her own sort of future, would you rather her sort of seek asylum in some Western country, or that she go back and face justice in her own country?
Well, with respect, I think that Sheikh Hasina needs to be answerable for whatever she has done under the laws of Bangladesh. That being said, at this time, my main focus is on making sure that Muhammad Yunus is successful in bringing stability, and that Hindus and other minorities are protected, and that the country as a whole, see a better future, a better tomorrow than yesterday. Bangladesh has tremendous potential. It was growing at a rapid clip economically. It has the potential for being a major economic power. It has 170 million people. However, we have to make sure that even as it grows economically, that everybody fares well under the new regime.
I do want to ask you, Congressman, this whole thing about, there's a lot of people in Bangladesh and otherwise who are saying that here was a ruler who ruled for 15 years. Of course, the United States was not particularly happy with some of her record, whether it is treatment of minorities, treatment of press freedoms, treatment of political opposition, and that this whole thing was orchestrated by, quote unquote, the deep state of the U.S. I want your thoughts on that.
I'm not aware of that. That seems like some kind of conspiracy theory nonsense. I think that at this point, Sheikh Hasina, no longer has the support of the people. And what her military did in opening fire on its own citizenry, killing more than 450 people, is completely unacceptable. I think the Awami League has a lot to answer for this. But all that being said, at this point, we need to rally to the support of Muhammad Yunus, so long as minorities and everybody in Bangladesh are protected and that the rule of law is observed.
I do want to ask you, of course, Mr. Yunus is heading an interim government. At some point, there's going to be a more permanent government that's going to come to the fore in Bangladesh after the elections. The fear is also because the United States pushed Hasina quite hard on freedoms and religious minorities and so on, whatever dispensation comes to the fore next will be far more closer to the Chinese. How would you dispel that fear?
Well, I think that's why we need to be there for Muhammad Yunus. We need to make sure that we can help him to restore some economic stability. Unfortunately, their reserves are down to roughly $19 billion, which is almost nothing for a country of that size. They had to take out a $4.5 billion loan from the IMF. So they are teetering on insolvency. And so in that kind of situation, we in the West, we in all industrialized and developed countries, including India, by the way, can provide an economic lifeline of sorts to help them and to make sure they stay out of the orbit of the Chinese Communist Party, because I think that would be a bad outcome for everyone in the neighborhood.
How do countries like the US or India, for that matter, which have an interest in what's unfolding in Bangladesh, how do you ensure that if the BNP and the Jamaat, and they've been in alliance together in the past, and we've seen their record, if the BNP and the Jamaat were to come back to power or were in a position to form the next government after the next elections are held, how does India, how does the United States safeguard their respective interests? Because the natural instincts of the BNP or the Jamaat are not necessarily aligned with either that of India or that of the United States.
Well, remember, aid and support is not going to arrive in Bangladesh unless and until they observe the conditions of that support. So, for instance, if we are going to provide a lifeline, an economic lifeline, so to speak, to help the current government stave off insolvency and to be able to provide for their people, certain conditions need to be observed, regardless of the government, regardless of the political composition of that government. And I think that we can condition that support in a way that makes sure that the rule of law is observed, that minorities are protected, and that economic stability comes to all parts of the country and to all people of the country.
One final word. How would you speak to this, what some are characterizing here in India as a reluctance by Western countries to give some form of political refuge to Sheikh Hasina? In that sense, they're saying she's here in India, now this is India's problem, we don't want to have to deal with her. How would you speak to that?
I don't know. I don't know which other countries she has sought refuge in, but let's just say for the moment, based on her current record, she has to answer for certain questions about her rule. And I don't know what the future holds for her, but what I know is the biggest issue of the hour, so to speak, is bringing stability to Bangladesh and making sure that all people, including Hindus, are protected there.
We do know that she's moved for some form of permanent stay in the UK. That's not been forthcoming yet. We do know that her son lives in Virginia in the United States. If she were to apply for some kind of long-term stay in the United States, how would you view that?
I don't know. I think it would be problematic. I think that, again, we don't know the full state of her record, whether she did commit crimes in Bangladesh. We don't know if the Bangladeshi government is going to ask for her to return to Bangladesh. We don't know the state of those affairs. All that being said, again, I return to my main point, which is even at the same time that accountability needs to adhere to her reign, her rule in Bangladesh, we need to help Muhammad Yunus right now in bringing order and stability, because that's paramount. That's the most important priority among all others, in my opinion.
All right. Congressman Krishnamurthy, thank you very much, sir, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
भाई मैंने भी इस बार SIP करके म्यूचुअल फंड में पैसे डाल, तो मुझे ये जानना था कि KYC का चक्कर क्या है।
म्यूचुअल फंड सही है .com या अपने म्यूचुअल फंड की वेबसाइट पे जाओ, पैन नंबर डालो और सिर्फ इतना देखो कि तुम्हारा KYC स्टेटस रजिस्टर्ड है या वैलिडेटेड।
रजिस्टर्ड हो तो
आधार और पैन कार्ड के साथ अपना KYC वैलिडेट करो, जरूरी है और ज्यादा वक्त भी नहीं लगता।
और वैलिडेटेड हो तो
सही है।
सही है माई भाई, अब तक इन्वेस्ट किया ना हो तो
KYC कर लो और मैदान में उतरो।
सही है।
म्यूचुअल फंड निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है। योजना से जुड़े सभी दस्तावेजों को ध्यान से पढ़ें।
I wanted to understand that Manish Sisodia has been behind bars in cases which were being investigated by both the CBI and the Enforcement Directorate for alleged corruption and money laundering. Then why didn't a trial begin against him? What kind of evidence was put forth by both these agencies to the court while he was in jail?
Well, yes, there are many crucial evidences that both these agencies have been able to capture in this entire matter. Initially, this matter was registered by the Central Bureau of Investigation, where they had gone ahead and arrested Manish Sisodia. Now, the allegation against Manish Sisodia that was put forth from the side of the Central Bureau of Investigation, that he was the then excise minister, and it was under his guidance that this entire policy was initially framed and then implemented in such a way so that the alleged South lobby could be benefited in some way or the other, and then in turn...
Yes, Anshul, just kindly stay on with me. I'll just come back to you. Excuse me for interrupting you. I have with me Ravi Srivastava, who is a political analyst. Ravi, thanks so much for speaking to us. It's a significant development. We've just got a news that the Supreme Court has finally granted relief and bail to Manish Sisodia. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a big news. It's a big news for Aam Aadmi Party, with all the sagging morale and all kind of disappointment, frustration happening to them. I think it's a very good news for Aam Aadmi Party, and they have got their strength back with this bail. And there are certain questions arising out of this bail. The Honorable Supreme Court has said that the bail is a rule and the jail is an exception. And other courts have not followed this principle for 17 months. I mean, I don't understand any reason for this. They did not have any evidence. They do not have any evidence. I repeat it. They do not have any evidence. Just by taking adjournments and deferring and taking time for filing reply.
But he was being investigated by both the CBI and the Enforcement Directorate for alleged corruption and money laundering. One wonders, why didn't a trial begin? Where was all the evidence?
Absolutely, I agree with you. The trial should have begun at least a year before. For no reason it was held up. The trial should have begun a year before. Probably he would have got the bail much earlier, because this is the issue. The trial was deliberately delayed for such a long time just by having this kind of practices by the ED and the CBI, taking adjournments, and because the fact is that they are working under the influence of the central government and they do not have any tangible evidence against Manish Sisodia.
No, so are you suggesting that there was a deliberate attempt to deprive him of his right to a speedy trial?
Absolutely, I say it in case of Hemant Soren also, I say it in case of Arvind Kejriwal also. These are all deliberate, purposeful attempts to crush a party which is the third biggest party in the whole country, and the way they have penalized, I would say this is the punishment. This whole 17 months is a punishment for no trial, and not having any evidence, not having any incontrovertible reason for that. They did not recover a single naya paisa from his residence, no property, no gold, nothing. And the family has suffered the torture. He suffered the torture in the Tihar jail. I mean, this is something unpardonable.
But the Supreme Court did say that there was, there were voluminous documents. And the fact is that his bail plea was rejected multiple times. So perhaps there was evidence against him to prove the charge.
No, before trial, evidences are only of the prima facie level.
Okay.
There are unless the trial, then when the trial takes place. Once the trial takes place, then the value of the evidence comes out. I mean, you can say this fellow has given a statement against you, this person has given a statement against you. All case is made fabricated on the basis of third person's statements. There should be material evidence, incontrovertible evidence to put somebody to this kind of a longer detention in the jail. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Ravi, thank you so much for joining us. Ananya, I wanted to understand from you, he was being probed by the CBI, the Enforcement Directorate on charges of money laundering and corruption as well. The Supreme Court, as I mentioned, had also said that how there was voluminous documents, there was a lot of paperwork. Then why is it that the trial never began against Mr. Manish Sisodia? Ananya, can you hear me? Okay, Anshul, tell us a little bit more about, the charges on which he was being held and what exactly was the case against him as far as the Delhi excise scam was concerned.
So when this case was initially registered by the Central Bureau of Investigation, initially the basic allegations that were put forth against Manish Sisodia was that he was the then excise minister and he was actually involved in framing of the policy in such a manner that the alleged South lobby could be benefited from this entire policy, not only in terms of giving them licenses but also in terms of the products that were selling. And eventually the deal that was made out that according to the CBI was that the Aam Aadmi Party would receive kickbacks of 6% from the owners of these businesses. That is basically the South lobby who was trying to go in and go ahead with their business out here in the national capital. Now, over the last 2 years, the investigation has been carried out by the Central Bureau of Investigation and by the Enforcement Directorate in this entire matter. More than 8 charge sheets have already been filed. The investigating agencies, while opposing the bail of Manish Sisodia, had constantly said that the investigation is still underway, and Manish Sisodia, being such a powerful member of the Delhi government, he has the power to actually go ahead and tamper with the evidences, and that is the reason why over the past 2 years he was not granted bail by any of the courts. Now today, finally, when the Enforcement Directorate had said that they are reaching towards the end of their investigation and they are on the verge of starting the trial, the Supreme Court observed that there are more than 69 pages of documents that has been submitted by the Enforcement Directorate and the CBI, and it is going to take a lot of time for the courts and for the agencies also, for the defense also, to go through that document.
Climate change is on our doorstep. It's time for a revolution to take root. And it starts with 1.4 billion Indians. It starts with one tree. One tree for humanity. One tree for Mother Earth. One tree for our future. Project One Tree, a News 18 network initiative.
Sisodia behind the bars for such a long period is something that is not correct, and that is the reason why the Supreme Court observed that he should be allowed to let go on bail on a bail bond of rupees 10 lakhs. So yes, it remains to be seen when will Manish Sisodia now walk out, but definitely a big relief for the Aam Aadmi Party and definitely for Manish Sisodia, who has constantly been trying to get out from the Tihar jail over the last 2 years.
Interesting. Stay on with me, Anshul. Ananya is back with us. Ananya, you know, it's a significant development. It's a striking verdict. But I wanted to understand for you, in fact, the court has said that the Aam Aadmi Party leader is entitled to a speedy trial, and that it would be a travesty of justice to send him back to the trial court. Now, his case was being probed by the CBI and the Enforcement Directorate on charges of corruption and money laundering. Then why is it in 17 long months the trial didn't happen?
Well, what had happened was, there was an attempt that was made by the Central Bureau of Investigation and the trial court also to actually commence that particular trial. However, the accused person had filed various various applications seeking to inspect either the underlying documents or to seek certain missing documents. And since there was a discrepancy with regards to the documents being supplied, and in fact, certain documents were missing with some accused, and these kinds of problems came to crop up, and hence, it took such a long time actually, in fact, to commence the trial in this particular case, which has still not begun. And in fact, the Central Bureau of Investigation and the Enforcement Directorate have almost completed their investigation. I guess the final charge sheets have already been filed in this particular case, both the CBI and the ED. The Central Bureau of Investigation filing its charge sheet very recently, which would be considered on, in fact, the 12th of July by, in fact, the Rouse Avenue Court of the National Capital Territory of Delhi, that would be commencing the trial in this particular case. And that was the exact reason why, the trials got delayed. But at the same point of time, there were findings from the trial court and the High Court that, there was a deliberate attempt to actually delay this particular trial. However, the Supreme Court stated that these were not deliberate attempts, but these accused have to be supplied with these particular documents, and because that is something that is required in the interest of justice, and is not a deliberate attempt, and because of that discrepancy in the documents and documents not being matching, that is something that has led to a delay in this particular trial, because there is a voluminous record of more than 69,000 pages that has been submitted by the investigation agency with regards to in fact, the Delhi liquor excise policy scam case. Remember that the allegations against the former Delhi Deputy Chief Minister is that in the garb of him being the excise minister of the National Capital Territory of Delhi, there was a faulty policy that was that was developed in order to fund these Goa elections, and kickbacks were demanded from the South lobby, and in exchange of those kickbacks, there were favors like the policy amendment that were given to the South group leaders, which include Ms. K. Kavita, Mr. Arun Ramachandran Pillai, and various other people. And both first it was the Delhi Deputy Chief Minister, and later it was the CM also who has to be found to be involved, and he's still inside the jail. But Manish Sisodia, after 17 long months, would be coming out from, in fact, the Delhi's Tihar jail into open air, after the Supreme Court stated that he has been denied his right of a speedy trial in this particular case. But the big question that remains at this particular point of time is that whether Arvind Kejriwal, the Delhi Chief Minister, would also be using this particular ground to actually seek a bail later in this particular case or not, is something that would be very interesting and crucial to see.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the court also making some very strong points, saying that keeping Manish Sisodia in jail for an unlimited amount of time, indefinitely, without any trial, is also a violation of his fundamental rights. And I wanted to understand that Manish Sisodia has been behind bars in cases which were being investigated by both the CBI and the Enforcement Directorate for alleged corruption and money laundering. Then why didn't a trial begin against him what kind of evidence was put forth by both these agencies to the court while he was in jail?
Well, yes, there are many crucial evidences that both these agencies have been able to capture in this entire matter. Initially, this matter was registered by the Central Bureau of Investigation, where they had gone ahead and arrested Manish Sisodia. Now, the allegation against Manish Sisodia that was put forth from the side of the Central Bureau of Investigation, that he was the then excise minister, and it was under his guidance that this entire policy was initially framed and then implemented in such a way so that the alleged South lobby could be benefited in some way or the other, and then in turn
yes, Anshu, just kindly stay on with me. I'll just come back to you. Excuse me for interrupting you. I have with me Ravi Srivastava, who is a political analyst. Ravi, thanks so much for speaking to us. It's a significant development. We've just got a news that the Supreme Court has finally granted relief and bail to Manish Sisodia. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a big...
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. The Ukraine war is escalating and it's being fought on Russian territory now. Zelensky says he's giving Putin a taste of his medicine. But is he prepared for the consequences? What is this Ukrainian operation and what is it meant to achieve? We'll discuss all of that. In Bangladesh, as a week of political upheaval draws to a close, the plot twists continue. Now, Sheikh Hasina wants to return to Dhaka. We'll bring you the full story. The protesters said that they were fighting to save Bangladesh's democracy. They ended up wounding the economy in the process. And what is the law and order situation like? Hindus carried out a protest march today. We'll tell you about it. Further east, tensions between China and the Philippines are escalating. A special report on the Subi Reef coming up. In Iraq, the government wants to legalize marriage for 9-year-old girls. What gives? In Japan, the world's first earthquake warning. In the US, people are losing faith in democracy. We have some ideas on how the world can help. And is silence the new wellness trend? Also looking at Pakistan's first ever Olympic gold medal and the contest to claim credit for it. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Israel agrees to resume Gaza truce talks next week. This comes as its troops begin a new operation in Khan Yunis. In April, Israel had withdrawn from the southern Gaza city. Since the war began in October, there has been only one truce, a week-long pause in November. Two Sri Lankan ministers sacked over defection. The Supreme Court upheld disciplinary action against them. The ministers defected from the opposition to back President Ranil Wickremesinghe. This comes ahead of presidential elections next month. It will be the first vote since the unprecedented economic crisis of 2022. Thailand's main opposition party relaunches with a new name and leader. The Move Forward Party is now the People's Party. It will be led by a 37-year-old tech entrepreneur. The party had won the popular vote in last year's election, but earlier this week it was forced by a court to disband. Samsung is recalling more than 1 million electric stoves in the US. This follows reports of accidental fires that injured people and killed pets. In 2016, Samsung's safety reputation had suffered a major blow. Its flagship Galaxy Note 7 smartphone was recalled over exploding batteries. And Botswana's president gives his country the afternoon off. Why? To celebrate its first Olympic gold. Botswana won gold in the men's 200 meters race. This is the first time an African has won the event at the Olympics. The war in Ukraine is back in focus. For months, the front lines were frozen, but this week, a fresh round of fighting has broken out with a twist. The war has shifted to Russia. Ukraine has breached Russian borders. Zelensky has taken the fight into Russian territory. He says the Russians should feel the war. His operation began 4 days ago, and now Kiev says Russian troops are surrendering. This video is from the Kursk region. It's in western Russia.